Welcome to another NHL 94 podcast, you 16-bit hockey fans. I'm your host, Len the Legend, and today we have another great show slated, and I'm joined this time around by another person that is well known in the NHL 94 community. And you may know him as one of the stars of Ice Pilots TV show, but I'll welcome this gentleman. This guy is normally the first star when you play NHL 94 with him, Mikey McBryan. Mikey, how are you, buddy?
Well, awesome, doing awesome. It's pretty warm, unseasonably warm here in Yellowknife. I think we're like -8, so that's basically like plus 20 or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Apples to apples for somebody right now. It's for Northern Canada. I'm up in Yellowknife right now. Yeah, -8 is This hoodie's way too hot.
I actually took a look at the temperature today, and it said it was going to be a high of -2. I'm not sure if it got there at Yellowknife, but that's almost above freezing for people down south. So that's pretty darn warm. You're right, considering your neck of the woods. I hope you guys are out there playing golf or whatever.
Yeah, well, no, we're working. It's actually the weather goes with aircraft and stuff when it gets warm and kind of cold at the same time a bit. The weather goes to crap, so it's been a tough days at work, and but yeah, I'm happy to be here, talk about NHL 94. Like I'm still at work right now, but we got airplanes going for another few hours. But I drop everything to talk about NHL 94.
Love it. I appreciate that so much. So for those who don't know who is Mikey McBryan, let's get a little bit of background who you are.
Yeah, so born and raised in Northern Canada. My father started this airline, Buffalo Airways, in 1970. We're 54 years. He's the longest running president of any airline, maybe in North America, possibly the world. And yeah, we operate a fleet of airplanes, everything from very small airplanes to 737s. And we do pretty much everything. We do firefighting in the summer for the little short summers we have, and in cargo and in passengers. And we have Twin Otters for off-strip stuff, float planes, everything, anything with airplanes that we do. So that's what I do as my day job. And then my secret hidden side job is NHL 94. I was lucky enough to, in between when we stopped filming the TV show Ice Pilots, and before I started a new project with aircraft, I had a small window. And in that small window, I made a documentary called Pixelated Heroes, which is on YouTube. And it was me going out and actually knocking on the doors of the NHL 94 community and the people that built the game, people that were in the game, the whole 9 yards. And it was basically over the course of 2 years, I got to travel all over North America and spread the love of NHL 94. And then we started the NHL 94 World Championships, King of 94. I coined that name after King of Kong because I love that movie.
Oh,
King of Kong. So that's where King of 94 comes from. It's actually a rip on King of Kong, which is awesome. I love that movie. And I had a small dream of making my own NHL 94 version of that. I've got so much footage of all the stuff because I filmed for 2 years. There's actually probably 3 or 4 different movies I could make. There's the tournament, the tournaments, the live tournaments. There's the builders. I got so many interviews that didn't make the movie. And of course the main tournament. The main tournament, the first one we did at Real Sports. I had film crews, everything. It was nuts. Pixelated Heroes story is just the tip of the iceberg. And if I only had a little bit more time, kind of like the Library of Alexandria, I got terabytes of footage. And then, like, I can go on and on. So, like, Mark Lesser, I went to his house.
Yes.
I went to his house. I was in his basement. I had dinner, spent all day with him. We filmed for hours, and I got the inside scoop on everything. There's a lot of stuff that he said, shut the camera off. I'll give you the real story. Of course, I can't say any of that kind of stuff. And then I went to Michael Brooks' house in Whistler. And that's the house he bought that house from the royalties of NHL 94. He lives on the side of a ski hill in Whistler. You can imagine how much that cost. It's a little bit cheaper in 94. But so I filmed, I think his interview was like 6 hours. I put these guys through their paces and got the story of Madden and all that stuff. And then I actually went and found Jim Simmons, who is the original coder of the game. And I got a hotel somewhere in California. and he had a couple hours. He was dropping his kid off. I think it was at swimming or something, and he had to pick him back up. And so I literally got a shady hotel, put him down, and I got that whole interview. The community, like, there's so much stuff. So yeah, it's nuts. And then, of course, all the NHL people. I was lucky enough to be friends with a few of the NHL guys, and so I got in on that. And anyway, you can see how excited I am about the subject. And yeah, like with the whole NHL 94 community, NHL94.com, a lot of guys never met each other. So they were online. So we started hosting live tournaments because I needed some footage. And but really, I used like maybe like we'd spend weeks and weeks and weeks organizing tournaments, and I would use like 20 seconds. Like that's typical TV. It's like all this stuff. So, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the community started building, and that's where your very first episode with Halifax, Daryl Sampson, he really is running the show right now, keeping it going, because just like King of Kong, the magic is with there's people. The people are the magic. The game is good, it's great, it's amazing, but it's the people that have grown up with it, stayed with it, and play with it, and that's what I think is the best.
And I'm very fortunate to have got Daryl come on the show. Even Raph came on the last.
Yeah, Raph King Raph.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have him come on.
I went undefeated. I thought, because this is the underlying thing. Everyone thinks they're the best because before the internet, everyone lived on their own little island, right? You lived as far as your BMX bike can take you. Maybe a cousin would come in from another town and beat you or something like that. So I went undefeated for I think it was like 11 years until and Raph was the first person to beat me, and he beat me bad. Like bad. He's the best, one of the best guys in the world. And I'm not. I'm not even the top 250. Like there's people that never played the game that could beat me. So I thought I was the best. And so that's the beautiful, that made me love the game even more. And then of course with the next guy you need is Angry J 93.
Yes.
I traveled all over. Like the ending credits of Pixelated Heroes is me and him at Ron Barr's house in San Francisco. Like me and Angry J playing and Ron Barr
right behind you
was commentating our game.
Yeah,
like, that's how crazy it was, and so that's amazing. So Angry J, he knows that game is through and through. So I would love for you to actually set up a little quiz for him because he has every player memorized. He knows lines. He knows everything. What is there? 380 people or 400 people in the game. If you gave two numbers, I bet you he can tell you what line it is. You could say 26 and 11. He'd go, well, that's Buffalo or whatever. I guarantee you. So if you get him on, you got to test him.
You know, he's definitely on the list of people I'm going to be inviting. So Angry J, if you're watching or listening to this, be ready for an invite and hopefully you accepted it. And no, I have to find out, like, I got to go dig deep into your past here.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come into NHL 94? Because I'd love to hear stories about how people came into the game, learned about the game, started playing it, and then really delved into it. I want to hear your story.
Well, it all started really, Blades of Steel. I had Blades of Steel on the regular NES. I was about 11 or 12 years old when the game came out. And so that was a really influential part of my life. I had the Sega CD version, and I had, of course, the standard vision. But I was a huge Patrick Roy fan. Huge. They just won the Stanley Cup, 93. Last time a Canadian team's won the Stanley Cup. And it's been a long while. In fact, my coworker, Sandy McPherson, I can never forget his birthday because it's June 6, 93, the day Montreal won the Cup. And or is it June 9th? Crap. June 6th or June 9th, internet will fix it. But anyway, that's his birthday.
We'll edit this after, though.
Yeah, no, you let it go. But yeah, Sandy's birthday is the day the Montreal won the Cup, and that's my coworker now, and I remember that day very well. So the game was the extension of the excitement I had of watching Patrick Roy and the boys win the Stanley Cup. So as it was the first time that you can actually be a real person, like Zelda and Mario, and these people aren't real people, but that's Roy. You're Patrick Roy. You're Jeremy Roenick. You're Eric Lindros. You are these people, and you. To me, NHL people were gods. And it's funny enough, they were all like 23. They look like they're 50. It's amazing. I go see NHL now, watching an NHL game. I'm like, this kid looks like he's 14. But back in the 90s, they look like Marty McSorley. I think it looks younger now than he did in 90s.
I gotta find out then. Pixelated Heroes, we'll be
Mhm.
talking about this quite a bit. I have a lot of questions to do with this. What was one of the inspirations, or what inspired you to do it? Because this is a project you just don't come across and start doing it. You have to think about it. You have to plan it. What was your inspiration behind it?
Well, we just finished Ice Pilots, which we filmed for 6 years. So that's 6 years, 73 1-hour episodes. It completely engulfed my life. You can watch it. It's streaming on Tubi right now for free. I think it's on Amazon. And depending where you are in the world, it's like on 2 a.m. with the 2,000 Flushes commercials. And Body Break. But yeah,
I love Body Break.
Yeah. I worked with Hal Johnson and John McCall before. That's another story. But anyway, so that whole thing, so that it was, the show ended and we finished the last episode, and me and Jeremy Watt, who helped me produce, he's a producer on Pixelated Heroes. We're sitting at the bar, Black Knight here in Yellowknife, and he's like, Mikey, what's next? What do you want to do? And I was like, fuck, man. I watched that King of Kong probably 30, 40 times now. I've never played Donkey Kong on a arcade machine, but I love that whole thing. I was like, I would love to figure out the story of NHL 94. I knew nothing. Like, I didn't know Mark Lesser. I just knew he was a name, Park Place Productions. I didn't know anything, right? So, he's like, hey, man, if you want to do it, I'll help you. And he actually did most of the filming. He was the one in the basement in Mark Lesser's basement with me. And he's the one you can hear in the background talking. So I went on and I went to, and this is a perfect plug, NHL94.com, the one place you got to go. I set up an account, and I lurked. I probably lurked for about 6 months learning. And what I did was I posted like a quiz, like there's like a 10 answer quiz, and I made it the most hardest NHL 94 questions I can get, like the the iceberg, like I was right at the bottom, and that gave me a little bit of credibility because they were like, who are you? Because I was lurking, and so that opened the door, and I got to hold of Daryl and Raph was one of the first ones, Chaos, John Glass, Smoes, all the boys there. They really helped me. And then I started building the ideas. And then Daryl was my first call. I went to Saskatoon, drove to Saskatoon, had a tournament with him and the Saskatoon boys. And then it just grew from there. So Pixelated Heroes, I would guess, probably cost $70,000. I bet you I spent $70,000 over the course of 2 years with the flights, the hotels, the tournament, and all that stuff. There's no chance of recouping it. That's gone money. But it never was designed to make money. It was basically my vacation after Ice Pilots, and every penny. I wouldn't change a thing. I wish it had a little bit more. I had a little bit more time with editing and stuff like that. I'm a lot better editor now. I've edited on my YouTube channel hundreds and hundreds of videos now, and I didn't do any of the editing for Pixelated Heroes. A really good friend, Jay Bolkart, did the editing for me. That's why I was like, oh, man, I could probably go back and rebuild it from scratch if I had the time. Like I said, it's 5:43 here PM. I'm still at work, but going back to the original question here, that was it. It was just sitting at a bar, and he said, "What do you want to do next?" And NHL 94 popped in my head, and that's what we did.
So anybody else is even considering doing something similar to what you did, what did you learn through all this process? What information could you share to somebody that maybe wanted to do the same thing?
You don't need to go to the person's house. You could do it like you're doing now. You could just call, like the last NHL 94 documentary. Just do it over Zoom. That never occurred to me. Like that's different. That's a post COVID thing. Like before COVID, it was go to the person. You do not call them. That is just, it's so strange. But now, like podcasts and how everything's changed, and it's so more expected. That would have been a lot cheaper. But as the person being there, it was 10 times better. It was 10 times better and it's, I wouldn't say selfish, but it's that I did it for me, but for everybody at the same time. Does that make sense? Like it was, I'm going to go do this and I want to share it with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times if someone watched a good documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop, it's all about Banksy and this other guy. It's very similar. You get caught up in the filming and forget about the movie a lot of times. And so, yeah, that's why there's so much footage. And it was, if I were to do it all over again, I would have a better plan, a better, organization and a better goal. And it would be way more efficient. It wouldn't have took 2 years and all that money. I could have literally did it for now. If I were to redo it, I'd probably spend the same amount of money. I know. I'd probably go. But again, so what's the goal? The goal is if you're making something for YouTube, do it as cheaply as possible because the ad revenue is and maybe if you throw in a sponsor like $5,000 or something like that. So YouTube's really changed the game. Yeah. So I was coming from a television background, which is very expensive. I think a kid today can make an amazing documentary with his phone and Final Cut Pro. I think you do very good. So my advice to somebody doing it next is do it wherever you do it. Just do whatever feels well, because at the end of the day, it's the fun that you have and the fun that you can share with everybody. Not so much how much money you can make with it or if people are going to like it or not. Make something that you like, people will like it. Just like your podcast.
Yes.
Don't be scared about anything about production quality, any of that kind of stuff. Just it will come with time. You're doing amazing already anyway. Just get it done. And at the end of the day, people will just want to hear other people talk about things that they like. And that's why I'm listening to an NHL 94 podcast. That's why the moment, like Daryl sent me the link, I was like 23 seconds, I sent you an email. I didn't even want, like, hey, how can I be involved? Right? That's what Daryl was like, oh, no, someone else made a documentary. I'm like, dude, I wish there was a documentary every day. Nobody owns the subject. Like the subject is for everybody, and that's why I'm excited with, like you said, the NHL 94 podcast. This is amazing. This gives a voice to people that don't necessarily have a voice a lot of times. And like I said, Angry Jay, Chaos, Smoza, the boys. Oh man, what's the dude's name from the? Oh, it's gonna bug me. The guy from the forum. He's like this legendary, like cloak and dagger guy. Oh man, so it'll come to me. But yeah, you got to find him. He's like the mastermind. His name will come to me. I think he's from Philly.
Is he the one that behind NHL 94 created NHL94.com?
Oh, Evan. I forgot about Evan. Evan.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. No, Evan is his dad. He interview his dad. Evan's amazing. Evan's the godfather. But his dad is the freaking crazy one. I went to his dad's house. Like I was in upstate New York. I interviewed his dad. He made the documentary a little bit, but he's charismatic. He's the man. Evan's awesome. Works at Rockstar Games. I have an amazing quote he gave me, but he emailed me later and said, "Hey, please don't put that in the documentary."
Oh, do you remember it? Or can you share it or no?
Well, I'll let him say it because he's the godfather. Evan and his ask him what theme song he used in his wedding.
I hope it's the Hartford Whalers theme song because that's a great theme song.
I'll ask him.
I reached out. I'm still waiting for a reply back from Evan, buddy. Please reply back to me. I'd love to have you on the show.
And your dad.
And your dad too. We'll get them both welcome on the show. Absolutely.
He was like, because it was somebody of another generation that loved NHL 94, and he was so charismatic. Like, again, I was in his kitchen. We filmed in his kitchen and stuff like that. Again, so much footage I have that didn't make the final cut. Evan, NHL94.com. So he started that. He started it so long ago that you can actually get NHL94.com. Like, but yeah, so the forums and everybody that gets it all going, all those guys, there's so much brilliance. There's so many talented people, and a lot of people are shy. But I think a podcast is a good format to let people express and to share content, like the white bug and all these. There's all these awesome stories that most people don't know that are hidden. Or
Well, I hope that
how do you add more teams? And like how do you take like it's like what 3 megabytes, which is like Taylor Swift MP3, if anyone even listens to MP3s anymore. But anyway, so like it's it's that one Taylor Swift song is the whole game, and that's all
yeah.
you have to work with for all the modders, and they do it every year. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna try my best to make sure that all these voices are heard. We hear the stories, and yeah, there's I have a laundry list of people I want to bring on the show, but I don't want to gloss over Pixelated Heroes because I still. Oh, sorry, you have something.
Clockwise, Clockwise is the guy's name. If you can get Clockwise on the show, he is an enigma, built-in enigma. He came to one King of '94 that I wasn't at. I never got to see him, but he really helped me in a lot of stuff too. So Clockwise, who there's only rumors that he lived in Philly, West Philadelphia, born and raised. I guess modding games is what he did most of his days.
Added his name to the list. Thanks for the
Yeah,
suggestion.
yeah.
No, but the Pixelated here, I still wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So it sounds like to me this was a labor of love, and that's essentially what this podcast is as well. And when that's what we're doing, and it's something we cherish, something we enjoy doing. It doesn't feel like it's a job. It's just we're just having fun doing it. But you said lots and lots of footage that has not made the final cut. When are we going to see the director's cut? When are we going to see part 2? We got to make this a trilogy or something along these lines. We got to do something.
There is enough footage that it could be a series because it is shot chronologically. It is shot in a way that I discovered the game through shooting it. So it actually could be a series. And it's all high quality footage too. Like I shot with real cameras. I had sound engineers on a lot of the shoots, which you don't even need that now. The iPhone is amazing. But yeah, so it could really be a series. What would be holding it back would be I would need an editor because I love editing. Like if you check out my YouTube channel, I love making videos, and editing to me is the funnest part of it. But just the sheer amount of time. If there was an NHL '94 editor out there, I think I have 2 terabytes of footage backed up. So it's like 4.5 terabytes of my backups, and it's all raw.
What does that equate to in terms of time? Is it how many hours? I mean,
geez. Well, each event would probably be an hour minimum, each segment, and I probably did 50 segments, so probably 150 hours, maybe more.
That's a significant amount of
maybe more. I'm thinking, well, just the King of '94 in Toronto, #1, I'd probably have 8 or 9 hours just of that. And then each of the tournaments, we did 2 tournaments in Saskatoon that I filmed. I did a tournament in Hartford that I filmed. Yeah, there's quite a bit, and then all the interviews, the gym. There's a Madden documentary. I have a Madden documentary of footage without even mentioning NHL '94. I went down the Madden rabbit hole. I noticed the one thing that everyone says, which is funny. Okay, a little bit of a disclaimer. The thing with NHL '94 is everybody interviewed had their own kind of version of the story, and everybody that was physically there in the development, it was basically the same story, but they all have their own kind of views. So a disclaimer is I'm only remembering what I remember from the interviews. But the one thing everyone was like, oh, the engine. The engine in '95 was so bad.
Yes.
And, the engine, it's all the same game. Madden, NHL '94, NHL, PA '93, NHL hockey, Madden. It was all the same engine. It was all the same game. Like it's the decision tree and everything.
You could see
when
it as a player. I mean, as somebody playing it, I could see that. 92,
yeah,
93, 94, definitely the same engine. And the Madden, like 92, 93,
yeah,
94, maybe even 95. I'm not sure.
yeah.
Same engine, 100%.
They didn't start from scratch, right? And in fact, I got the guys at EA Sports to confirm to me that no EA Sports hockey game started from scratch, right from the beginning, right till at the time it was a 2015. Jeez, is it that long ago? It's almost been 10 years.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
Time
Yeah.
flies, man.
So I think NHL 15 was when I was at EA Sports, and they had never started from scratch. So the NHL 94 DNA is throughout the whole thing. So no game, because of the how crazy it is, even though like evolution, you look at a duck and you look at a dinosaur, like doesn't make any sense, but they all came from the same worm at some point, right? And so the game never started from scratch. So the NHL 94 code, graphic file, sound file, move, file, interline file, a system. It's there somewhere. It's unrecognizable, but it's there.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So when people say NHL 95, Mark Lesser loves NHL 95. He might like NHL 95 more than 94. So he gets really upset because he worked on the games equally as hard. So to him, it's just like, oh, your son Billy, he's awesome. That Timmy guy, oh, he's a terrible, terrible person. He ruined my life. He's like, hey, they're both my son. So yeah, he likes NHL 95, but it's the same game. It's the same game. It just they tweak things and they change it. But so when they made Madden, they actually thought of a hockey game because they had issues with them running. The running looked like sliding.
Yeah.
So they had it work a lot, and then they were like, man, if this was a hockey game, it would look like they're skating. So, and that was that Park Place Productions? Am I getting that backwards? Yeah, Park Place was Jim Simmons. I used to know those, and Knox. Anyway, I'm bad on my trivia right now, but the original guys, and then it all, the thing
We're jogging your memory right now.
Yeah, they made a lot of money with a little bit of people.
Yeah.
So there was the NHL 94 and Madden. There weren't big money. Like they didn't think it was big money, but because of sales and because of the rotation of being able to make the same game over and over again, they were able to produce 5 games for one. So, and there was not that many people. Like there's the Mark Lesser in the barn. That's real. He was in the barn. His buddy did the art down the street. Maybe not down the street, but in the same area. And imagine that. So now go to EA Sports today, and they have teams. They have 200 people. They have a building. They have the same sales. And guess what? The games are the same price. It's still a $60 game, but it was a $60 game in 94. And NHL 94 was the only year it's outsold Madden. Look at the sales numbers. They were making a lot of money. And then, so when 95 came out, the money breeds people. So more people involved, more ideas, more everything. And that's why the game gets scattered and it gets out of place. And I need this, change that. When you're making a podcast by yourself, you could have full control. You can do whatever you want. You could edit this, do whatever. But if you have a podcast that is nationwide and you got sponsors in there, you got a team, you might not, they might come back, someone tell you, hey, you know what, let's do a FIFA podcast. NHL's not doing so good. But you can make that decision. And that's, they had the luckiness of being able to do it themselves. And they're very nostalgic of that moment because they'll never have that back. No one will have that back unless you build an indie game.
Yeah.
But there's nothing indie about EA right now.
No, and that was, you're right. It was like catching lightning in a bottle. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Everything aligned perfectly for them to execute and deliver a product, which we're still playing and talking about today. And Mark Lesser, I can't pass up this opportunity about finding out how it is that you tracked him down. From what I understand, that was quite an ordeal. And maybe you could shed some light on what happened there.
He's a lot easier now since people like myself broke the trail. Lesser is amazing. He'll definitely He's the number one guy. He's got to be on your podcast for the season one season finale. He's a type of guy that you could go to his house, leave $100 bill on his counter, come back 2 years later, and it'll be sitting there. Like, he is the salt of the earth. He is the straightest shooter person I've came across, especially in the Pixelated Heroes world. Everyone was good, but he was amazing. I still talk to him, probably every 6 months at least. I send him articles and update him on stuff. And how we found him was Raph. Did Raph tell you? Raph found a reference to a reference in something. I don't want to give up two things because it's kind of like doxing them, but yeah, I think it was Raph found, or somebody found a reference to something, and we got a hold of his wife.
Wow.
And I emailed his wife, and I said, this might sound crazy, but did your husband design video games? And then I got Mark's email, which was still
Don't say it.
It was like a school email. Like, it was like an email from probably when email started. Like, it was, it wasn't definitely like a new email. And then I reached out to him, and he thought I was crazy. And and then ended up going to Maine during. It was there was a big snowstorm at the time, and flew out of Boston through Toronto. We rented a car, went out there, had cameraman Todd Craddock with me, Jeremy Watt helping, and then we went to his house, and it was amazing. Amazing house, amazing family, and I know he has stuff hiding there, like the Ark of the Covenant, and he is such a straight shooter that he would, if it's EA property, it's EA property. And so that's why that's all I can say. There's an Area 51 of stuff, because he made that NES game with Dracula with the Reebok shoes.
That I'm not familiar. AVGN did a video on it. You're right.
So that's Lesser's game. That was never released.
Oh.
So that leaked out online. So that's like Dracula, and you had the shoes, and it's actually a pretty clever game. Mark made that. And so, like, he's got that kind of stuff somewhere. He tells me he doesn't, but because he's a straight shooter, and I could read between the lines, I know it's out there. He's just a great guy, and I can't thank him enough for letting us in there, and all that fun stuff.
There's one scene in Pixelated Heroes where you and he were in the basement, his basement, and he disclosed and showed you the first limited edition #1 of that NHL 94 cartridge and the box that comes along with it. And that's for the Genesis. Now, between you and I, we'll keep this under the wraps, and hundreds of thousands of people are going to be watching and listening to this. Did you slip that into your briefcase that holds the Genesis and takes it home, or did you leave it there? Because what an opportunity you had! You had it in your hands. You should have took it home. Did you?
What you should do is you should download the documentary and put that scene in, so you could almost react to it. So what happens is he has a box of games. They're all brand new, never used, never did anything. Pulls out a copy of NHL 94 of his own thing, hands it to me, says, "Hey, Mike, you can have this." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is a sealed NHL 94 copy. It wasn't special edition. It was awesome. It's from Mark Lesser's collection." I was like, "Oh, this is amazing. You can't get better than that." Literally the next game next to it in the box, I pull out. I'm like, "Oh, here's another one." And I see that 0. And you can see in the documentary, I hold it up in my hand, and and this isn't exaggerating. About, like, that movie in Avengers where Doctor Strange goes through all the different scenarios. I'm going, "Oh shit, I could just switch this, and he would never know. He doesn't even know he has it." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" But then I'm going to be in that guilt for the rest of my life, and I'm like, I'm going to be, on my deathbed. I'm like, I shouldn't have stole that game. I'm like, that wasn't mine. His family should have it, and it should be in a museum. And I'm like, and then just like just like on that My Christmas Story, where he shoots his eye out, or he gets
Yes.
ice go. He's like, I gotta whip up a story. I was like, hey Mark, can I switch these? Like this is a special edition, and it's in the video. I'm like, hey, because then he said, then it's like, okay, he said I can have it, right? So that's the idea. I was like, hey Mark, can I switch these? And he's like, well, here, let me take a look. He's like, no, you can't. Look what it says. But I knew what it said, right? And then I was like, oh, and then behind the camera, Todd Craddock, the camera guy, goes, what is that, Mike? What does it mean? Is it number one? He's like, hold it in front of the camera, and he's like, get the shots. And I'm like, oh my god. And then I was dumbfounded. I'm like, well, what do you want for this? And he's like, I think he says like an arm or a leg, and I was like, deal, and all that stuff. And then for like the next hour, I was like, it's number one. It's the number one game. Who even knew it existed? And I was like, what do you want? I can trade you anything. What do you want? He said, no. But if he would have just grabbed the other one and handed it to me, it would have been done. It was a 50-50 chance. And so that to me was amazing. It was great to have that caught on film. And that's kind of what you don't get in a scenario like this, is like, if you're there, these magical things happen. And I don't regret it one bit, because it's his. Like, I didn't make the game. I'm just a guy from freaking Hay River, Northwest Territories. Like, I can't even skate backwards, right? So I'm like, no, it's like, no, this is amazing. It was amazing to help find it, because it could have been lost forever. It would have been a 2-second garage sale, get rid of those things. I don't want them. So I was lucky enough to be able to find it and touch it and all that stuff. And yeah, so do I regret it? No, I'm just happy it's there, and it should be. Yeah.
He doesn't live at the place where the legendary farmhouse.
No, he moved, and in fact, I tried for a year to film at the barn, but the lady was raising like horses that have like mental issues, and they were scared, and they were keeping like she would like take horses, from what I could, like horses that were spooked or they couldn't work with people or something, and she was like rehabbing them. And so it was close a few times. And we were actually going to go to the barn and film. Like, that's how extreme the documentary was being filmed. Because really, was it important? No, but it was more of the adventure and excitement. But I was very close. There was some movie connection too. There was
Misery, that comes to mind. It kind of reminds me of that.
It's like Pet Sematary was filmed there too. So yeah. There's some, like, again, that would be a nice little segment of a series to be like, oh, here's the barn. I could literally do a half an hour on the barn, like the story and the leaks and the heat, and people from EA would show up and be like, what the frick is this? Like Michael Brooks said, I'm paying you $1 million and you're living like this, like. So like, there's at least a half an hour on the barn alone.
So you spent a great deal of time. Well, when I say a great deal, more than any other of us lesser human beings would spend with Mark Lesser. So you're with him, you chat with him, and you converse with him. Was there anything in particular that you learned from him? Like, anything that struck out? Like, wow, I never knew you were behind this, or you made this, or anything that just he brought up that just blew you away?
The very first handheld video game ever.
Yes.
He, like the football game, like if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy #2, Peter Quill, in the very opening scene, they're fighting that big spaghetti monster thing. He's got a football game, the Mattel football. That's Lesser's game. Yep. Like, his Lesser's games is MCU canon, right? But so there's all those connections, like the NES games and that kind of stuff. But really what he taught me is exactly the end of the documentary, is it doesn't matter what you make as long as it's made well. That's it. As long you can do whatever you want in the world, you can be whatever you want, you can do anything you want as long as it's done well. And that's the lesson of his career, and I think that's the most valuable lesson that I came across, for sure.
Well said. Now, in the movie, in the documentary, you were carrying around a briefcase, and in that is it nearby? I
don't know where it is. It's around here somewhere. Yeah, I found that in Arizona. That's the Blockbuster rental Sega case.
That's what it is. I was wondering, where did you get it? So you got it from Blockbuster.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
Arizona. There was a gentleman helping me to get all the consoles. So how when you do an NHL '94 tournament, where are you going to find consoles, right? So what's his name? It's amazing. His dad was a backup goaltender for the Blackhawks in the '70s, and he followed games in Arizona. He was a manager there, so he got me like I paid I think like $30 this console. Like consoles at the time were cheap, 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 cheap. Like not buy Apple stock, you could have bought all these consoles and sold them today, right? Well, especially during the COVID boom. But yeah, so I ended up. I think I've had 36 consoles. I think 15 Super Nintendos and 15 Segas, plus some extras. And like we smashed one there.
yeah.
And
So
then
you
I
brought
gave
them
him
all
the
for
Daryl. I gave him all the
you,
Daryl. I gave him the Daryl for the tournaments going forward. But
right.
anyway, so he had it on the wall. I was like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the when you went in the Blockbuster to rent a Sega Genesis. This is the case he got." I was like, "Geez, I need that." So that's why I bought it, and I carried the Sega everywhere I went. Um, yeah, yeah. Like I would always have an NHL '94 cartridge on me, like a wallet. And it sounds weird, but it was more like to remind myself and to never let go in my thought process of what I can do, because a lot of a lot of it's manifesting. It sounds strange, but it's like, oh, I need. Oh, who won the Stanley Cup? Oh, Steve Larmer, Glenn Anderson. Hey, why don't we find an arena and why don't we go play some hockey? And we'll grab some of the guys from the '94 community and they can come play hockey with us. Like to get to for that stuff to happen, and to people to spend time for a lot of times for free. Like Glenn flew New York. I bought him a plane ticket. He flew in from New York. He spent a day with us, and I knew some of his friends and stuff. So he made a trip out of it. And I ran into Glenn another time in Vancouver when he was at hockey, and we had a marvelous time. We had a fun time. But anyway, so they become kind of friends after the fact. Some of the NHL guys are friends before. But yeah, so to do that and to get that access, it's a mindset that you can't let go. Like so, I always carried an NHL '94 cartridge with me to keep my brain tuned to that. It's in a better way of it. It sounds very kooky, like people that have crystals or whatever, but it's kind of similar. If you want something, um, and to get rid of the doubt, you have to have something complete you to remind you of what to do, and that's what I did. So yeah, so you got to let the universe have everything come to you. You got to be ready for it. So that kind of stuff. So just like perfect example, your podcast, right? You got Daryl, and then Daryl texts me. I say I got to come on the podcast. So just by you starting this with the NHL '94, you got the NHL '94 magnet. So this is like the next generation of content. So you can get everybody in a long form podcast because we've already been talking longer than Pixelated Heroes the whole movie. So yeah, so it's a whole nother level, and I could literally talk for hours on all this stuff as you can see.
Well,
So
we'll have you back again, but I don't want to let you go yet because I still have a few questions if you're okay.
yeah,
Because you were talking, you brought Larmer and Anderson on your documentary, and
mhm,
Glenn Anderson, I've watched him play. I watched him play with the Leafs. I watched him play with the Oilers. I watched him play like because I'm old enough to remember him back in the heyday when he was winning Stanley Cups
mhm.
with the Oilers. He played with a bit of an edge back in the day. And I just want to know, did he play NHL '94 the same way? Did he play with the same type of edge? Because I'd love to know if that carries on from real life game to the to the digital version, the
It's
16-bit version.
it was Steve Smith that scored on himself, right, in the
Yeah,
Oilers.
he hit Grant
Yeah.
Fuhr's.
So
Yeah,
did you notice in the game
yeah,
he's playing Steve Smith and Steve Smith scores on himself in the game?
yeah.
Like
He mentioned it. He talked about it.
he
It's like
mentions it and then he does it with him.
okay, that I didn't notice that he did
That's
it
an
again.
Easter egg on an Easter egg. Like there's
Poor
so
Steve
many
Smith.
so many Easter eggs in Pixelated Heroes. Like and not be like I'm not getting actually I'm not even getting any ad revenue on Pixelated Heroes at all, not even 1 cent, because the Zambonis, who are an amazing band that really helped me out, because I use so many Zamboni songs, Zambonis are getting 100% of all the ad revenue for
Oh,
Pixelated Heroes.
Very nice.
And so they gave me the rights to use and all that stuff. So it was like it would have been okay for me to go to YouTube and say, "Hey, can you give me the ad revenue?" But it's not really that many views. I don't know if it's at 20 or 30,000 views right now. Like the video I just made 2 days ago is already like at 150. So it's not that many views, and so it's a little bit of money. But I'd rather give it to the Zambonis because I gave him like a couple $100 for gas or something to come and perform at a concert in Hartford of all places. Yeah. So anyway, I was again. As I said, there's no money at all from Pixelated Heroes. It originally, a little side note, when I was in Sacramento, working on an aircraft project, I ran into a company. It was XOTV.me or .o or something, and there was a guys it's basically a YouTube competitor, and they really blew me away. And the original, when Pixelated Heroes first came out, it was actually there was a paywall. I think it was $9.94 or something, and it was on XOTV, and it was like an XOTV original. And it was on there for a while. I think it made like 300 US, and they sent me a check, and the check expired before I took it to the bank. Because the cashier's checks expire in like 6 months, and I took it there like 8 months later. So it was like I think it was like 360 or $380. So I didn't even make that. So I spent that on wine for Todd Craddock, the camera guy. He spent we're in a restaurant in New York. He spent $300 on wine, and he gave me the receipt, and he's like, "You can write this off." I'm like, "That's not how things work, Todd."
One part of the documentary made me laugh. And when you met Cliff Ronning, now just before you met him,
Cliff's
you
awesome.
put he was pretty funny, but you put some tape on the back of your jersey and number 7, and it started peeling off as you're talking to him. What made you come up with the idea of just doing this in the fly and making an ad lib jersey?
Well, it was like, sorry for swearing a bit, but I
don't care. Go ahead, you can do whatever you want.
I need a Ronnie jersey. Number 7 Ronnie jersey, and all that stuff. And we found the old the Calgary spaghetti or the Vancouver spaghetti, and we couldn't find one. And then so I was like, "Oh, I'll just make one. I'll put some tape on it. It'll look really cool." Originally, it was like it's gonna look cool, like kind of retro, and then it just became a joke. And
yeah, it was a great part.
There's a really cool that shoot. Ronning's awesome. He's a competitor. That guy is a competitor. Like when we're playing the game, he was focused. He's like, "I'm going to beat you." I slaughtered him. Right. I was taking it easy on him. But yeah, but there was a group of people that helped me up on that shoot that shot it for free. They're really awesome. They were friends of a friend, and so we had a fun time with that shoot, and yeah, it was good. And then EA Sports, my cousin from Yellowknife here actually works at EA, which got me in the EA, which was really cool too. He was really helpful on that. So that's what I said. The universe, it keeps on opening doors as far as you go, and you just got to keep on going there. Never be negative. Never go down that rabbit hole of self-doubt or pity or any of that kind of stuff. Just keep on going, and something positive like NHL 94. It's like it's its own little cult. It opens a lot of doors. There could be 30 people trying to get my attention. One person goes, "Hey, do you like NHL 94?" Push everyone out of the way. "Yeah, man, what do you need?" Like it's like a code word.
And it worked for you when I showed up on the scene. You were able to right away. But I got it now. I want to just shift gears a little bit and talk more about the game itself. And I want to talk about you playing the game and a little bit along those lines. Now, since we're talking about running, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Do you think the team Vancouver Canucks in the game is overrated? Now, the reason why I'm saying that, they have great players.
Are you talking about the Super Nintendo version or the
Genesis version? I look at it, Burry is fantastic. Running, he can hit with the best of players. He's a great weight bug guy. But after that, Courtnall's pretty fast.
And Burry kind of holds back. In '93, kind of held back there during the actual game, that whole controversy.
No, I'm not familiar with this. What happened?
Oh, in the actual physical game, Burry was holding back. Like he was like, I don't know the full story, but there was like contract negotiations, and it was
Oh,
and so there's a conspiracy theory that he was holding back on the last plays to show how valuable a player he really is, and they Vancouver might have lost because of Pavel Bure's lack of play, and I touch on it a very little bit in Pixelated Heroes. Again, another hidden Easter egg. That so people, it's a well-known thing. I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, but it's a little Easter egg of the '94 finals of Bure, and which Ronning Ronning
yeah.
was there, and Anderson and Larmer, all four of those guys. So anyway, that's for your viewers. You can Google it and that whole kind of fun thing. But so again, when it comes to the game, Angry J 93, Greg, the King of Sacramento. Anything I say is nothing compared to his knowledge of the game.
No, but I
And
want to hear your opinion on it. I mean, are they an overrated? Are they an overrated team in the Genesis version? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I played the game a lot of solitarily with myself.
So you versus the computer
with drunk people at a college party, right? So not at a high level. So when you talk to people that play with a high level, there is no opinion. They know the numbers, and the opinion is like they're splitting hairs of a point of a percent, right? So I know, like, people will go like Jeremy Roenick's the best in the game, and Pat Flynn. Not Pat Flynn. Pat LaFontaine is the best. And Pat Flynn's my boy, man. I had a Pat Flynn jersey in college. I used to wear all the time. And
you must have loved it when he was drafted number 2 after Eric Lindros.
Old Eric Lindros, yeah. Peter Forsberg, that whole worked out good for old Colorado Avalanche. Which Patrick Waugh, my hero in '96, well '95 and then '96. Him and Forsberg and Sakic and the boys, all the Quebecers.
They were ready. That team was stacked in prime, ready to go. And
because of Eric Lindros. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, they got Hextall, they got Duchesne, Forsberg, Ricci, 10 million cash. I can't believe I remember this off the top of my head. Yeah, it was. But you know what? All in all, I don't want to veer too far into the weeds here. It was a good trade for both teams because Lindros did win an MVP, and I think he helped take the Flyers once to the finals.
Yeah.
They lost to the Red Wings that year. So both teams, they actually came out on top, in my opinion. But that's
I always played Montreal, and Waugh being the best goalie in the game was always the best. And then, of course, Chicago. So to me, it was always Montreal and Chicago. I didn't hang out too much in the West, but Ottawa was terrible. The Ducks were terrible, and you'd play. I got the world record for NHL in goals. Did it make No, it didn't even make Pixelated Heroes, I don't think. But I actually competed, and I got the PAL version. You do All-Star West versus Anaheim, I think, and you get the most goals, and then you put on Twin Galaxies, again going back to King of Kong. And I actually made it in the Guinness Book of World Records in 2014.
Was using the PAL version an advantage because of 50 hertz?
No, it is an advantage because no one was submitting scores. I was the only one submitting scores. So like, because Raf had like at the time like 86 goals, I got the world record on the PAL at 23 goals, and only reason is no one was doing it. So people have been doing it since and beat me, of course. But it was kind of like a cheat to get in the Guinness Book of World Records. Well, I couldn't find a 60 hertz television. Is it 60 or 50? I can't remember.
60 over here for NTSC and 50 for the PAL.
So I had to use a projector. I found a projector. And I used a projector because a projector, you can change all the settings. And I did it in the basement of a place I was renting. And I got and I submitted it. And I got actually behind me. What camera? Oh, I'm using this camera, but I got Walter Day. I was.
Oh yeah.
Mikey. What was I? Superstars of 2017 award. I got signed by Walter Day, a bunch of guys there, and Billy Mitchell. We're
going to talk about Billy Mitchell in a bit. Did Robert Murzak sign that too, or no? That's another one that I'm.
John Weeks, Daniel something or other, Walter Day. Eric Tesser, Richie. I don't know any of these guys.
Richie Knuckles?
Is it Richie Knuckles? Yeah, Richie Knuckles. Who's that?
He's one of the guys that are associated with Billy Mitchell. I
Oh,
can't believe I know this stuff.
yeah. So I got like a plaque on my wall, and I was helping Walter Day because he made all these cards. Here, one sec.
So just for the people watching or listening in, he's
Yeah,
just going
this is all
behind him.
stuff they didn't make the. So I got like a big thing of like, there's me, NHL '94 Superstars of 2017 cards.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
so
a one of
Walter,
a kind, isn't
yeah.
it?
What's that? These
That's
cards?
one of a kind, is it not? Or like,
Oh yeah, no. So like he makes these cards every year, and yeah, so he made hockey cards for people that made world records and stuff. And again, the only reason I got to world record because no one was submitting for it.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's not something I earned out of merit. I earned out of research.
you were the first there. You were the first
Yeah.
person to land on the moon.
And,
Now,
and so Raph is the world record holder still. I think
he recently I saw a video over 100 goals he did.
Yeah, so you could argue that he is the best single player against a computer in the world. Then if you want to ask who's the best player in the world, you're going to have to say, and we're talking Sega here. Super Nintendo is a little bit of a crapshoot because people can Super Nintendo is way better to watch live because people can come in and win. The people that win the best in the world in Super Nintendo are a lot of times people off the street, and they're not part of the NHL '94 community. You know who's going to win in Sega? Angry J 93. He went on the last King of '94. I think he lost one game. So when somebody's so dominant, he's the best in the world.
King Raph has beat him in the tournament in the finals at least.
Oh yeah, early on.
Yeah,
early on. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't. Don't take anything away from King Raph. He's amazing. He's the nicest guy. I think he looks like Mario Lemieux, but nobody ever says that. I think he could pass off as a Mario Lemieux. And he was really helpful, amazing thing. But he has to beat Angry J. If he comes in, if Raph comes into a King of '94 tournament and Angry J's not there, and he beats everybody undefeated, in my opinion, he has to beat Raph to be the best.
So he's your.
Raph has to beat AJ to be the best.
So yeah, Angry J is on your Mount Rushmore for sure.
So you can see I'm like a promoter, right? I was like, we got Money Mayweather here, Angry J. He's undefeated coming in, and Raph could beat Jake Paul. Who knows? We're just saying, no, he's too nice for that. But what I'm saying is that is the final in my book. I was always joking around of doing a Yellowknife All-Star, like take the 6 best guys, bring them to Yellowknife, put them in a room, and just let them, stream it and then stuff. We've always been kind of joking about that, but yeah, so maybe one day.
Now, it's getting close to an hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm very appreciative you came on the show to talk about NHL '94. I'm going to throw to you a few rapid-fire questions.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the answers are for these. So, number one, I'm going to come right away with auto goalie or manual goalie. Which one do you prefer?
I'm an auto goalie because I didn't know about manual goalie. And that puts me way behind these guys. If you're not playing manual goalie, you're not going to win. You have to play manual goalie. You have to be good at it. You have to stop when this podcast is done. Play manual goalie over and over again if you want to even have a chance of winning. I am an auto goalie guy. And that's why I suck.
Genesis or SNES?
Sega, all the way. Sega. So one thing I want to touch, Armory Wong, who did the designing for Super Nintendo, he's in the documentary. Canadian. Super Nintendo is Canadian. It was designed in Burnaby, BC. Surrey, Burnaby, where they were in Canada. I think it was Burnaby. Canadian made. It is not the same as NHL '94. It was a completely separate team. Armory, I can give you his contact information. He'd be great to be on the thing because he is the Super Nintendo. Completely different game. Sega's better, in my opinion, but Super Nintendo is better to watch live because it is way more unpredictable.
Do you prefer playing the 2v2 ROM or the regular just 5
regular
goalie?
Regular. I'm not a 2v2 person. That is a 95 thing. But anyway, no, people love it. I'm old school. I like the 5-on-5.
If you had to play with one team, would you prefer to play Winnipeg or Dallas?
Jets, man, for sure. I'm 96. I went to the sixth last game the Jets ever played. Yeah. No, I love the Jets.
So,
Timu.
what's your preference? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said Timu Solani.
He scored 70 goals in his, I think it was his rookie year, something like that. He came out of nowhere. But anyways, what's your preference for the guy at center? Speed, lightweight, or a good shot?
Always the best player. Whoever's the best player in the team is center. I don't really edit the. I play like an Angry Bird style where it's just a game. Oh, I get the game quick as much as possible. I don't sit there and edit the lines and all that stuff. I just like when I sit down and play the game. I play the game, and I'm more about how many games I can play. So yeah, and I know Daryl touched that a bit on the documentary or on your podcast here about how to some people want to edit lines. You got to get the games moving. So I'm all about getting in the game and playing. So
That's
auto
fair.
goalie, auto lines, offsides off.
Yes, agreed.
Get the game moving, have fun, turn your brain off, and then go back in time.
Have you ever witnessed any fist fights or participated in any fist fights with respect to the game?
Yeah. Well, there was a part that I had. Here's a funny story, and Daryl knows this more than I do. There was a guy that was playing Daryl in the first King of 94 in Toronto, and he got really inebriated and he was drunk and being crazy. Perfect television. He messaged his sister, told me that day I was not allowed to use any footage of him. And then he messaged me like 3 or 4 days later. He's like, "Hey, if you use any footage of me, there's going to be a problem." Yeah. And I was like, yeah, so that was kind of that. To me, it wasn't that bad. Daryl loved it. Daryl's super upset he didn't use it because it was very comical. But everybody in the 94 community has been amazing. It's not even close. Not even close.
Biggest wager you ever seen on a match?
Well, I think on the first one, I think was $1,300. I think on. Yeah, so what we did on going back to the King of 94 one, 100% of the prize or the people that were bringing in admission went to first, second, third. Mm-hmm. So I think the first one was $1,094.
But how about like side bets? People placing bets on the side. Have you ever seen?
It costs so much money for people to go to these tournaments. I think like they were waging coupons because they spent all their money. So there's not big money. There's not big money, and that's what I like about NHL 94, the community too. It's all walks of life. Yeah. You got some guys that buy suites at the hotel and they open it for everybody to play, and then you got guys. Some of the best players showed up on a bus, and they spent everything they had, and they took time off work when they shouldn't have. And I hear all the stories where they're just doing the best to make their ends meet, and they're there at the tournament. So that's the best thing about it is it's pretty much the whole walk of life.
Are you a Billy Mitchell guy or a Steve Wiebe guy?
That is probably the hardest question I've heard in 2024. I'm a Wiebe guy, but I sure love rooting for Billy Mitchell. I message him on or I comment. He always likes my stuff. I send him like, "Congrats, Billy!" This stuff, and yeah, it's almost like a little bit of LARPing because I like Weeby's the Wiebe. He's the guy. He's the good guy and all that stuff. And he got screwed at everything. And if you haven't seen King of Kong, go watch King of Kong multiple times. But Billy Mitchell's just so damn fun. He's a guy that I would love to go for a beer with, and it's just because his version of reality is a reality that is a lot more funner than actual reality. So, have
you followed any of the controversy between he and Mame? That's
every millisecond. I can talk for 2 hours about. I've only played Donkey Kong on a real arcade cabinet once in Vegas. On the old Vegas there, Fremont Street. There's an arcade there, and I played it once, and it's hard. Oh yeah, I followed the whole thing, like the finger tile.
Yeah, the finger girder.
Yeah, and then he's got the screens, and they're got the screen capture, and then all that stuff.
Carl Jobs, I think that's a guy's name. Have you watched his?
Every single one. The blonde guy.
So there's a 3-hour video that not he did, somebody else did about the Billy Mitchell, and it just did an analysis on it. I'm not sure if you saw it. Probably did.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it twice, and it seems like it's
Mm.
indisputable evidence that he's using meme. But anyways,
Yeah, but in Billy's world, which is the fun one, no, he's not, and that's what I love about it. It's like the '90s. It's like OJ over again. It's just like, here's all this crazy evidence, and then OJ goes, "No, it wasn't me." And it's like, okay, OJ. It's like it's the '90s all over again, and that's what I love. I love it because it's not real life. Like, it is real life. They're getting sued for millions of dollars, but they're not taking it seriously. They're still living in these weird worlds, and I just love being a fly on the wall. You see how excited I get. Billy Mitchell's the man, and when people take it too seriously, I think it's even funnier. No, Billy Mitchell's a crook and everything. It's like, it's freaking Donkey Kong. It's Donkey Kong. Like,
Todd Rogers is another one to follow, and he's a
oh yeah, with Dragster, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, Walter Day. So when I worked with him on the cards and stuff, I'm like, yeah, well, you're the godfather. You're the Evan of that whole regime between the galaxies and stuff. And yeah. Anyway, there's at least 2 episodes of just Twin Galaxy stuff in the Pixelated Heroes TV series. So,
I want to see that. So I guess I'll ask you one last question before I wrap things up. If there's anything you could change to do with NHL 94,
fighting,
100%. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. And that's why I think there is a ROM somewhere. I could probably give you GPS coordinates of where that ROM is.
I could have people there within minutes. I'm kidding. I'll make a few calls. We'll take care of this. Guido and Vito will be there within.
So we'll if you study how NHL 94 was made from a physical standpoint, Mac computer, a Sega probe, a Sprobe they called it. So I don't know if you know the story about how EA reverse engineered the Sega. No. So EA. Yeah, because, like, if you look at the NHL 94 cartridge, it's not a standard Sega cartridge, the Sega cartridge. The reason why it looks like this is because EA didn't want to pay for the licensing for the cartridge. So it is official Sega now. Like, this is official Sega. But the original design was, no, I'm not going to pay Sega's licensing fee. I'm going to make my own game. How do you make a game on the Sega? Well, you need the Sega development kit, right? You don't get the Sega development kit. What you do? Well, you get a clean room. You take a Sega Genesis, you take it apart, and then there's a line in the room, and you have your other machine, and you build a machine to work on the Sega, and it's called the Sprobe. There's the other different words. I got it saved on eBay just in case one ever pops up, and that hooks up to a Mac computer, and you make the game, and it burns it onto a ROM. FedEx. Lesser used FedEx. You put the ROM in the FedEx envelope. You send it down to California. They would test the game. They'd send it to the testers and all that stuff, and then they would destroy it or whatever, and they'd write notes, and they would send it back, and he would do it. Burn a ROM, put it in the FedEx envelope, and he said the FedEx guy was like basically a family member because he was there every day. So how many of those ROMs that have fighting in them were burnt? Well, how many days does it take to develop the game? How many days was fighting in the game? That's how many ROMs are out there physically. So I already said too much.
We'll leave it at that. So I want to thank you very much for coming on, spending time to come on our show. I just want to ask you one thing. Is there anything you just want to, last words, anything you want to say before we sign off?
I got last words forever here.
It's all yours, Matt. The floor is yours. Take your time.
So the community is again, saying everybody, like, John Glass has got a really good story about his friend's house burning down, and they saved the Super Nintendo, and you got to get him on the show. Smoza, if I'm saying that right, Smoz. He's a mastermind. He's a little bit on the quiet side, but he is the brains behind a lot of the operation. And we got King Raph on there. Of course, AJ. I'm a fanboy of AJ, of course. And then Clockwise, gotta get him. Evan and his dad. Just 2 episodes. Get Evan, get his dad. And then I could help you with all that stuff. Get some, Theo Fleury. Theo was great. Theo came right to the hangar, And so he's got some really good. He's one of the rare NHL '94 players. I was in the game. I played the game, which is actually kind of rare because there were, what these guys are 20, in their late 20s. That they were really 50 if you look at them. They weren't playing video games like the kids today, right? So,
but he talked about when he first got his paycheck, he bought all the NES games that he could find, and so like he enjoyed playing. He just apparently sucked in hockey games.
He was a very, very awesome guy. I know he's very controversial in the last little bit. COVID really changed a lot of things and changed the world and stuff. So I know he gets a lot of negative press, but I spent a lot of time with you. He's a really good person down. Don't let the political stuff ruin that. He'd be a great person to talk to. I can really help you out with getting that content because to me, I think long form content is amazing. You can get all the information. It would actually be fun to actually sit down and actually watch Pixelated Heroes as a reaction, and so I can pause it because it would really jog my memory and go, oh, you know what that is? This is a 10-minute story about that, which is maybe even more interesting than what was on the show. I could. Yeah, if there's anybody watching that could edit in a more of a factory type way, like a factory editor, I'd be interested in sharing the files and to build a series, which would be really nice, especially now it's coming up 10 years. That's freaking 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What happened, eh?
Time flies.
Time flies. Yeah. But it's the people, the NHL '94 people. There's the guys in Saskatchewan. There's a really good story. There's a group of guys. There's two brothers and another guy. 90s Jacket is the guy. So they have a jacket, like it's like a jacket they got from the Salvation Army. And whoever was the NHL, and they play Super Nintendo. Whoever was the champ got to wear the jacket.
It's like a belt.
Yeah, exactly. So they're in Saskatoon and they play within themselves outside of the community. And so whoever is wearing the jacket, is the best within the friend group. And to get all three of those guys talking at the same time, it would be amazing. Daryl can help you with that. I wish all the names are all flooding back. Blake J. Harris, he wrote the book Console Wars. He's in the movie, or he's in Pixelated Heroes very briefly. He loves NHL '94. He's a great one to talk to. Puck Junk on Twitter. He did the article for Sports Illustrated. He's the reason I'm actually in Sports Illustrated for a person that can't skate backwards, which is quite the accomplishment. I'm out there with my orange chair skating around. So Puck Junk there on Twitter, he's like, yeah, there's so many people you can talk to. It's like if someone ever says NHL '94 podcast, what are you gonna run out in 2 days? No, there's the extended NHL '94 universe is a lot bigger than people give it credit for, and it goes, oh man, I wish my buddy there in LA who did you got Ron Barr. You can get Ron Barr, the voice of NHL '94.
That'd be an awesome get.
So here's a side thing for people that are still watching. I'm sitting there, Angry Dre beats me on there. I'm wearing my Marty McSorley. We were supposed to go. Marty McSorley was always my favorite because he was the bad guy. I love the bad guys. Montreal Canadiens my favorite. Who's the bad guy? McSorley. I loved him. I'm in a bar with Caton, my one buddy that helps me film, who walks right by me, Marty McSorley. And I fangirl. I couldn't breathe. Caton didn't even know who he was. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I go up to him, and there's a really good documentary called Boys on the Bus, shot from, if you haven't seen Boys on the Bus, stop what you're doing right now, watch it. It's all about the 1987 Edmonton Oilers. And Michael Boland, who helped me shoot the King of '94 #1, was actually the guy on the ice with the Oilers filming this documentary. Anyway, and there's a story, Marty McSorley in there. He's on the farm with his dad, and the dog comes out of the bush and it's being chased by coyotes, jumps on the farm tractor, hiding. His dad grabbed the dog, threw him back at the coyotes, and says, no, this is your fight. And that was like a life lesson, like, don't run away from your things. So when I first seen McSorley, I was like, oh, remember when your dad threw your dog at a bunch of coyotes? And that's all I could get out. And he looked at me, he's like, what? I'm like, oh, the movie where your dad threw your dog at the coyotes. And he had no clue what I was talking. He's like, okay, man, see you later. But and this is where the TV stuff comes in. He was with some of the Calgary Stampeders, the CFL guys, and a couple of them were Icepots fans. So I was sitting there like lurking at the bar, and they're like, "Oh my god, hey Mikey, come over here. I need a picture with you. I need a picture." So I'm picture with them, and they're like, "Oh, that's good to see. I love the show." Blah blah. McSorley sitting there is like, "Oh no, this freaking guy." So they're like, "Oh, come sit down." So I like sat down right next to McSorley. And yeah, the Snapchat the next day, I was wearing McSorley's Stanley Cup ring. It was a big party. It was amazing. Had a great time that night. So anyway, when I was in California, I was supposed to go. Film with them. I had some really good footage of him in '93 when they were doing some hockey promo stuff, and yeah, all that stuff. It didn't. The timing didn't work out. Which sucked. It broke my heart, but at least I had that moment. So that was the whole thing with when I was down there by San Francisco, and then of course AJ's from Sacramento, so he came up and we filmed that. It was awesome, and yeah. So it's again, you can see it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So
McSorley's career ended in a strange way, didn't he? Yeah,
this year.
Yeah,
which kind of sucks. Kind of sucks because it's if like Gretzky's on TikTok right now, and he says he's got a great line. He goes, "You can't be Gordie Howe, you can't be Mario Lemieux, but you can be Marty McSorley." Meaning Marty McSorley wasn't the best hockey player, but he went out there and skated, and he worked hard, and he practiced with boxing guys, and he worked, and he made himself an NHL player, a real player. And so Gretzky idolizes him, and so if he's okay with Gretzky, he's okay with me. So,
agreed.
Again, he's the Billy Mitchell of hockey, and so in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Of that. Yeah, no McSorley.
He's not playing meme. I can tell you that. That guy put in the hard work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mike, yeah. No, sorry. Just anything else you want to just before we sign off? Because man, oh man, this has been a stellar interview, and we can have you back on again.
Yeah. No, I could. I could do color commentary. You could put me up in the corner, and I could just watch too. I'd sit there with popcorn and watch. But yeah, no, thank you for doing what you're doing. You are part now of the NHL '94 lore. And so that's the cool thing is when you do stuff like this and you create, and the people of the NHL94.com and everything like this, and the new documentary that came out, and my old documentary, and the live tournaments. I want to do a quick shout out to Troy, who does the Edge of '94 tournaments too. He's got his own little thing going on to the tournaments, and it's people like all of us that put everything together. Part of it, you are part of the NHL '94 story. And anyone can do it. So you can just go out there, create, and be part of it. And let's see if we can do another 40 years or 30 years.
Let's keep this going for sure. But Mikey McBryan, thank you for coming on Buffalo Airways, Ice Pilots. You've been around.
YouTube, check it out.
Yeah. So with that, thank you for tuning in, for listening in. Keep your stick on the ice and your controller plugged in.